I'm Naya, mom, boob nerd, board-certified lactation consultant, and lover of lipstick and curse words. I'm that weird Indian girl you knew in high school, all grown up.
And I'm Alexis, mom, birth nerd, and therapist plus doula, encouraging parents to hold joy plus what the fuck is this mess simultaneously. Some people think I'm too much, but those aren't my people. And we are the Top Knot Squad. TKS is a tiny little podcast about motherhood in real life, the good, the bad, the ugly AF.
Hosted by two women that are passionate about our beliefs and unafraid to speak our minds.
Friends that wanted to create space for all that ish we are too scared to talk about.
Are you ready to laugh, be vulnerable, and keep it real with us?
Top knots are not required.
If the Top Knot Squad content makes you laugh, nod in agreement, or makes you feel less alone, we'd love your support in the cost of producing this podcast. Visit patreon.com/topknotsquad to learn more about our budget-friendly sponsorship tiers and how you can help ensure that TKS has a future. Every little bit helps. On today's episode, the squad talks about sober parenthood. We've all read and probably laughed at a meme that jokes about needing to drink to cope as a parent. For years, alcohol has steadily seeped into the social fabric of motherhood, with pictures of mimosas at morning playdates, thermoses of mommy juice on the soccer field sidelines, and Facebook feeds filled with stylized memes declaring that it's not really drinking alone if your kids are home. Studies show that women, especially women in their 30s and 40s, are drinking more now than ever before. It is said to have originated back in the 1960s when mostly male doctors would reportedly prescribe Valium as a way for women to manage their anxiety rather than teaching them coping and self-regulation tools and calling the process Mommy's Little Helper. Our guest today is Danielle Park. Danielle is a tarot reader and teacher, massage therapist, and mother of two young children in Austin. She uses the tarot to help people embrace their own agency and develop a practice for self-acceptance and self-awareness. She has been sober for over 2 years and enjoys documenting the proliferation of wine mom propaganda and merchandise. You can learn more about her on Instagram at oakmoontarot or oakmoontarot.com. Welcome. We're so glad you're here to talk about this with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yay! So we're doing a new intro segment to kind of break the ice, and we would love to hear if you have a what the fuck of the week, month, year, and then a fuck yeah.
Yeah. I think my what the fuck and fuck yeah moments are the same one.
That's totally possible.
It was my daughter's 6th birthday this past weekend, and I had her party planned, and she was going to have a sleepover, and that morning we discovered that she and her sister had lice.
No.
Oh, yeah. And had to cancel the party, reschedule it, and deal with the lice situation and do all the laundry and et cetera. But, like, the kids handled it so well. I was, like, super impressed. There wasn't a meltdown about a canceled party. It was just, like,
That's
smooth.
huge.
I was great. Like, their emotional regulation was just, like, amazing. So I felt really proud, even though it was a real pain in the ass, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great moment.
Yeah, it was good.
We haven't dealt with lice yet.
Yeah,
I'm not
it's
ready.
you know, it's honestly not as bad as they make it out to be.
Yeah.
It's really not. It's just a little tedious.
We have had worms.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I haven't done that one.
I haven't done that one.
I'd like to opt out of worms.
Okay, what about you, Naya?
So I think my what the fuck moment has to do with my oldest in school. He's very much a sensitive soul. He's 9, and there have been little girls that have been picking on him lately, and they haven't just been saying mean words. They've been getting physical, which I'm like, you're 9. You're not supposed to do this yet. And I hate to sound stereotypical, but it's unusual. In my experience, it has been unusual for girls to be physical. I feel like it's a lot more emotional warfare. And so I'm kind of reeling and trying to figure out how to deal with this. And we've let teachers know and stuff like that. And so it's been handled. But that has definitely been like my what the fuck moment, because this kid would not harm anybody. He's my old soul for sure. And then I guess, what is my fuck yeah moment? I don't know. My fuck yeah moment is that I'm busy at work and I get a lot of value in myself from the job that I do. And so when I have great days with clients, it's awesome. And I've been having several great days, so I will take it.
That's awesome.
How about you, Alexis?
I'm going to steal your combination there. And this week was 100th day. I don't know if y'all's kids' schools
Yeah.
I saw some
do this.
Facebook things, yeah.
Yeah. Which I had never experienced before, so I honestly was a little ignorant to like what it even meant and what was involved. But this is our first time where they're like 100th day, it's a big deal. And not only did my school, like what the fuck was, not only did my kids' school make it different days for each of my kids because
How does that work?
it's already hard enough to prepare for one day of anything that's themed at school, let alone having to do it one day for one and one day for another. But then when I was like thinking about, they wanted them to dress up like a 100-year-old, so like an old person. And I was just like, fuck that. Like, this is so annoying. And no, I'm not going to tell my kid to, because of course my son especially, he was more into it, was like, I need a cane. And I was like, no, that's not okay for you to have a cane. Like, you're mocking a disabled person. Like, I'm not okay with this 100th day, and I didn't realize how passionate I was about it until it arrived. So anyways, but my fuck yeah rolled into that is we did have good conversation. Like, I think my son was like grasping all the feelings I was sharing, and he like had legitimate concern of his own. And so we like kind of brainstormed like what could he do instead. And for Halloween, we were witches and wizards. And so my husband had a Hagrid wig and beard. And he was like, oh, can I be Hagrid? And I was like, sure, you can be Hagrid. He's fictional.
Yeah.
So he was Hagrid for the 100th day.
That works.
Yeah.
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 Anyways, yeah, again, if you like this or hate this, let us know. But we think it's good to have an icebreaker.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's dive in. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your story and your decision to parent sober?
Yeah. So my first few years of parenting, I was married and I drank a lot. My husband and I were big drinkers. And so I was very much a part of like that, wine mom culture. And then when I got divorced is when I got sober. And it was a very conscious decision that had a lot. It was inspired by a few different things going on in my life. The divorce being the main like kind of catalyst for that, because I really wanted to set myself like apart as a household from what frankly is an alcoholic household that I had with my ex. So I really wanted there to be like a stark contrast, not only for me, but for the children especially. And also my mother was going through breast cancer treatment, and alcohol it really, really increases your chances of developing breast cancer statistically. And so that was like another impetus for me to get sober was, seeing my mother go through this. So that was about 2 years ago. Yeah, and I think my decision really was also motivated by growing up with a father who was a big drinker. And I did not want my children to experience the emotional abandonment that growing up with someone who drinks too much in their life. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those are my motivating factors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you and your ex separated and divorced, starting over, starting fresh, clean slate.
Yeah.
You make the rules,
right.
and that's it.
And sobriety was a big part of that. Yeah. Yes. And I do think it took like kind of getting out of like, when you get two people who drink a lot together, that's like, it's really hard. It's really hard to see your own behaviors clearly. And if alcohol is central to your relationship in many ways and the way that you relate to each other, you can't. I think it was impossible for me probably to quit drinking in that relationship. So it really took the divorce for me to be able to see, my drinking as problematic. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you quit cold turkey? Mm-hmm. Was it hard?
No, it wasn't. I don't think I would ever classify myself as an alcoholic, And I think that's a really loaded and weird term anyway, that's like really kind of coming into question for a lot of people who are exploring sobriety now, just because the term alcoholic kind of implies a powerlessness over alcohol that I think a lot of people are really realizing that's not really the case, that we're all like just addicts who are powerless against alcohol. It's really, a conscious decision that we're making to drink, and it can be a conscious decision that we're making to not drink.
Right.
And I have, within the past year or so, of like, my partner's also sober, and we've like kind of experimented like over the summer and over the holidays. We were like, can we start incorporating like alcohol back in at all? Is that something that we want to do? So like had a couple glasses of wine at a party, you know, here and there, like maybe 2 or 3 times over the past 9 months, and really decided that like, no, absolutely not. Like this is just not something that we can do. So it's been kind of like a learning process over the past couple of years.
Was your partner already sober? Or?
No, but definitely not like a problematic drinker in any way. Just kind of a social drinker. Yeah.
Yeah. And then on that note, do you think we should talk about kind of where we are or where we stand on it?
Yeah.
I'm not a sober parent. There are definitely but again, it's kind of what you said. I wouldn't call myself an alcoholic. I would call myself a social drinker if I'm out with friends and we're at dinner. Yeah, sure, I'll have a glass of wine or a margarita. But it's not one of those things where I'm counting down till 5 o'clock so that I can have that glass of wine. There are definitely days like yesterday was just that should have been my what the fuck moment. My day yesterday should have been that. Anyway, it was a really rough day. And I remember I posted something on Facebook and somebody commented, they posted a GIF of like someone saying, "Oh, you could really use a drink," and I'm like, "Could I though? Like, it's gonna be fine."
Yeah.
And so I think maybe I did that with this subconsciously on my mind, knowing that we were going to discuss all of this, and like, can I deal with hard shit in life without having a glass of wine or whatever? And guess what? I can.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Absolutely.
And so yeah, I would definitely call myself more of a social drinker. I'm not some nights, like some weeks, maybe on weekends, I'll have a drink with my husband after the kids go to bed or after dinner or something like that. But it's not really an everyday thing. I definitely don't drink to get drunk to avoid
Except for
feeling.
when we won a birth award.
Except for when that was celebratory, and it was only because our husbands did not want to drink the Prosecco or whatever it was that we got. Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but when you said that, I was like, we intentionally drank to get drunk.
That was, yeah. Okay, I take it back. Sometimes, very rarely, I will drink to get drunk, but it's definitely not like a frequent thing. But what about you, Alexis? Obviously, you're not drinking right now, but...
Super fast, funny side story is I was definitely pregnant the night that we're referring to.
Yeah.
And I was like, 4 days later, I was like, why am I still hungover?
Yeah.
And turns out,
still feel like shit.
Yeah, cells were splitting. When you were talking, I don't know what my label is because I wouldn't necessarily define myself as a social drinker. I'm not sober, so I am currently. But in general, I'm not sober and I enjoy a beverage, but I do have like a complicated relationship with it. And like my mother was a legitimate alcoholic. I mean, she still is. And I think that has impacted even when I was a teenager, like I was the good I was the DD and like I never wanted to, I hung out with that crowd, but I never like wanted to participate because I was so scared of doing what my mom does, right? And I was so used to like taking care of her and helping her recover, right?
Right.
And so I think that like carried into my adulthood. And so, but I definitely had moments where like, birth award night or in college, I had nights where I got wasted. But I think that in general, my tolerance is really low. And so I like recognized that really early on whenever I would drink that like, whoa, I need to be careful or I'm going to like black out. So I don't know what and then like when I had kids, I certainly participated in the culture of.
I'm sure we've got a couple memes on our Top Knot Squad account of like wine jokes or something.
I own a shirt that says "Mom needs wine," and honestly, when I became a parent, I was more my addiction of like I need caffeine. Caffeine was more of what I like. This is what's so funny about parenthood. I can't do it without caffeine more than wine, but I did definitely participate in it. So I don't know. I'm complex. And I'm definitely, when we get to the sober curious, or is that what it's called?
Sober curious.
Yeah. That resonated with me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit more about the wine mom propaganda and the merchandise that we see everywhere? And then just kind of how the impact that it has on our parenting, on our self-worth, and definitely on our mental health?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, it is like all over the place. Have y'all noticed that?
Yeah.
Like, it really didn't like hit me until like I stopped drinking, and then I would go into these stores, like especially stores that are geared towards women, like boutique-y kind of places, and just like glasses and like flasks and just anything you can slap a label on that talks about like, you know, the booze that's in the cup or how you're not going to be sober for this event or just like whatever.
Right.
And it's all like really funny and like ha ha ha, but like when you really look at it, it's like, wow, this is a little alarming that it's normalized to this level. I mean, alcohol is a drug. Like, let's get real. Like, it is an addictive drug. And we just like crack all these jokes about it like it's just nothing at all. Yeah, and I find that really distressing. And I also find it really distressing that it's geared towards mothers specifically because it's like our society is not set up to support women when they're mothering. Like, we don't give women any support. But it's like alcohol is like this bone that we're throwing women. Like, yeah, we're not going to give you paid leave or maternity care or, you know, anything like that. But we'll let you get drunk.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you get. That's how you can cope.
I'm realizing I own a wine glass that says surviving motherhood one sip at a time.
Right? Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it's one of those glasses that a whole bottle of wine can fit in.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Yes. I know those.
Yeah, but when you were talking, like, it definitely is like, well, no, I need a lot more to survive motherhood, and
Like coffee.
But I've also engaged in a lot more to be able to survive. And even now, like preparing for this third, I've done tremendous work to survive this because I know that I need it, right? And none of it included alcohol.
Yeah.
But I own that glass. And I'm sure there's a picture somewhere down my Instagram feed of me like clinking it.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's like I listen to myself say these things. I feel like I sound like such a bummer and like a buzzkill. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's like I'm being so lame. Like, I don't want to be like part of the party. But it's distressing because it's like we're offering women this coping mechanism of alcohol that does exactly the opposite of what it's intended to do.
Right.
You know, it increases your anxiety and depression. It numbs you to your feelings. It is not a tool that you actually want to use to enhance your life or your experience. Like, it's really not.
No, I was going to say you're right on with what you said about how our society isn't set up to support women when they mother. It's like motherhood is this horrible broken bone that's like poking through the skin, and alcohol is just kind of a Band-Aid on it that it's not really going to do
like
anything.
Like a glittery Band-Aid.
Yes, exactly.
It's glamorous.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everybody has that Band-Aid.
Yeah.
So you feel really weird if you don't put that Band-Aid over your gaping
I mean, it's
skin
a
hole.
club, right?
Yeah.
It absolutely is. Yeah, for sure.
Did you say the word buzzkill? Okay, yeah. When you said that word, I immediately thought of like, I actually don't enjoy my husband when he's drunk. Like, you know, so as far as like it being a social tool, if he gets to a certain point, I'm done. I'm like, you are not enjoyable.
Yeah.
Get away from me.
Now I just have to mother more. Yeah.
Exactly.
I get it.
And then even the consequence on the other side of that, of now I hated him in it when he was drunk and he was annoying. But then the next morning, he's like worthless. So.
Yeah. It really like when you are not drinking around someone who is drinking, it really is apparent. And it sucks because you're not on the same level as them. And so it makes it really hard to relate to them. I mean, you're not talking about him or anyone drinking around your kids, but like a lot of us do or did. And even just like a little bit is enough to like put you just out of reach, like of your children emotionally. I remember that like so distinctly growing up with my dad. And he was not a mean drunk or an aggressive drunk or any of that, but it was just it just numbed him enough and took him enough emotionally away from me and like our family that it was very painful because I was like, and even from a very, very young age, I remember thinking to myself like, wow, it's such a bummer that he can't be present with us. And on some, subconscious level too, it's like, well, what is wrong with me and us and our family that he has to escape?
Right.
And I certainly did not want to provide that example for my kids. And I feel really terrible that I did for, years.
I resonate with that.
Yeah.
Like, that was the buzzkill for me. Was my mom was the life of the party. Like, she even had the nickname of Shameless Sherry. That was her name. And she was shameless, and like everybody loved her, and she was hysterical. But every time she was that person, like, one, that was not the nurturing, loving mother that I knew she could be. And two, it was like she was performing, and it was very annoying, and like there's no connection.
Yeah.
She's not present. So, yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
Man. Well, what about, so when you became sober, like, what did that provide more space for you to do?
Well, to feel my feelings.
Yeah.
For one thing. Like, yeah, and to get to know myself and to know what I was capable of. I think like one of the big things that a lot of people fear when they decide that they're going to give up drinking is around their social life. Because first of all, so many of our social engagements center around alcohol, like in a huge way.
Especially in Austin.
Oh man, it's huge. It's huge. Like, like when I quit drinking, I was kind of like on a Sunday afternoon or something. I was like, well, what do I do now that I'm not going to go drink margaritas on a patio? Like, I don't know what to do. But so it's not just like, oh, you're going to be around people and they're going to ask why you're not going to drink, but also like how like relating to people, like sober, can be intimidating if you have any kind of social anxiety or you're just become accustomed to being, lubricated with a couple of drinks when you're hanging out with your friends. It's really like you're not sure how you're going to do and if you're still going to be charming, and all that stuff. And so it's really good to like get to know yourself as a sober person and know that you are still capable of relating to people without that without that juice, right? So that was really good. It provided kind of a new lens on myself that I appreciated because I really did think that, I was awkward enough socially that I really just needed booze, and that turned out not to be true, thankfully.
Yeah. Timeline-wise, was tarot and being sober around the same time for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you found? Has that been helpful in that journey, tarot?
I mean, it was definitely like, I do think that not drinking does force you, it is kind of like taking a Band-Aid off, right? And so it does force you to look at a lot of your stuff. And so having a reflective like tool like the tarot to kind of help, that was very useful. But not as like I needed another coping mechanism to help me through not having alcohol. Like that, it wasn't really like I was having any kind of alcohol withdrawal or sadness around not drinking. Really, it was more like what sobriety kind of exposed that was going on under the surface anyway. You know what I mean?
I know that people that listening to this right now are people that enjoy drinking. They drink responsibly. They take rideshare. They don't drive. All of that stuff. And this conversation might be making them feel a little bit defensive. Is there anything that you want to say or anything that we should say to honor that or just speak to that or around that?
I can feel in myself this like desire to like make people feel okay about it. Like, oh, no, it's okay. You can drink and it's okay. And the truth is, you can, of course. Like no one's going to take that away from you. If you want to drink, go for it. And if you don't think it's a problem in your life, fine. But if the idea of sobriety does make you defensive, like that's worth questioning. Like why? And when you think about, because I used to feel like that for sure. Like, I would think about giving up drinking every now and then I would get bristly, be like, oh man, that's going to suck. And it's like, why? Why is that going to suck? What is that going to force you to look at? If you can't drink, what is that going to require from you? And why don't you want to explore what that is, you know? There's that term gray area drinking, where it's like your drinking is not necessarily like causing any problems in your life. You're totally a functional person, and it's not an issue. But if there is like a nagging kind of question in the back of your mind at any time, like that's worth exploring. Like if you think that your drinking might be a problem, or if you suspect that it is, or if you suspect that it's like not allowing you to show up to your life like 100%, then it's an issue and it's worth questioning. And I think like defensiveness is probably like a clue that there's something worth exploring there. Yeah.
Yeah, defensiveness is always information for me.
Yeah, for sure. But like, keep drinking if you want to keep drinking.
Yeah, exactly.
No one's going to take it from you.
Yeah.
But it is worth looking at. Yeah.
And I think the point of us exploring this topic on the podcast was because we know more and more of our friends are becoming sober or participating in dry January or something where they give up alcohol for some period of time. And so I think that'll take us over to this. So I don't know exactly what sober curious means.
I only know what I wrote down on the show notes.
Okay.
I just discovered it. My friend Kendra actually told me about it, and I was like, oh, wow, we're about to record this episode. But basically what I gathered from it is that it's a way to, like, it's curious because, like, we're in exploration of what the fuck this means, right? So it, like, identifies that, like, there maybe isn't really black and white. And if you're going to become sober, it's going to require some self-reflection and being curious. Exactly what you just said. Like, if you're defensive about this, like, let's be curious. That's what I took from it. But I can read a couple things from this article I found, which we'll put in the show notes. But it says here, in a world where we're quick to put ourselves and each other into boxes, a new alcohol-related trend has started to take hold that defies all that. The sober curious movement. In a nutshell, identifying as sober curious means you know from experience that alcohol doesn't make you feel great and you don't drink it often, but you're not willing to put an all or nothing label on yourself. And then the article also did talk a lot about some of the stuff you brought up, Danielle, about like alcohol actually we know like scientifically that it's not good for us and it has negative consequences. So they talked about here, research has shown that alcohol is inflammatory. A recent global study found that even a little bit of alcohol can be harmful to our overall health. And then there was a psychotherapist that kind of even talked about identifying as sober curious prevents us from falling into a black and white way of thinking, feeling, and behaving. It can help us better understand our relationship with alcohol. When do we drink more than we intended to? Are we drinking because we want to or because we feel we need to? Having curiosity opens up possibility. So,
yeah, just kind of what you said about that defensiveness.
Yeah, just question that. I do think learning more about the health effects of alcohol is probably really important, like for people who are like curious about getting sober, because talking about it just as like an emotional or psychological thing can be like that just leaves so much like gray area. But like if you just look at the facts, like the health facts and health statistics around alcohol, that can be very, sobering, pardon the pun. But like it can really make you like look again at your drinking habits because health consequences of booze are really serious.
You just posted something in your stories today about its effects on breast cancer.
So,
and that I found I was
I have that one on lock. It's
I was going to pull it up.
Yeah, for a woman who has like 3 drinks a week, your risk of breast cancer goes up 15%. 15%. 3 drinks a week. That's not that many.
Whoa, yeah.
And then for every additional drink that you have a day, it goes up another 10%.
Wow.
That is huge. Yeah. That is huge. So that was enough for me when my mom was going through breast cancer and I was contemplating stopping drinking. I was like, well, damn. Like, yes, that's insane. And then just little stuff like sleep. Sleep, like it wrecks your sleep, and which is really funny because a lot of moms will drink wine before bed, and I used to be one of them. Like, I gotta have a glass of wine so I can go to sleep. Well, it ruins like your REM sleep, And then alcohol actually like stays in your system for like 3 or 4 days, even just one drink. And so it messes up your sleep, not just that night that you drink, but like for the next 3-4 nights. And so if you're only drinking twice a week, that actually means that you're never sleeping well. So that alone, like for moms especially, like should be like something to consider. And then of course, as far as anxiety and depression goes, it's just like, it really like puts you in a loop, like where you just can't climb your way out. Like, it's bad news.
I had no idea about breast cancer.
I know.
So that's
I
very
didn't either.
new for me.
Well, and you know, and it's so ironic too, because you see those little pink ribbons are slapped on wine bottles now.
Yes.
And at any fundraiser around any kind of health event, like it's still centered around alcohol. It's crazy to me. But that's lobbying for you.
Yeah.
No,
You know?
definitely.
Yeah.
It's all about money, like in the end.
Well, even us planning, we had that kickoff event that you were at. There was this whole conversation of should we have alcohol, should we not? And it was like, I don't know if you remember, like, because initially I was like, oh, we don't need alcohol, and then it was like pressure, like, oh, but then people are what are they going to say?
It,
like,
and
they're not going to have fun. You're going to seem like dowdy and like boring. I get it. It's hard, but you know, like. It's also just disempowering. You know, like drinking is disempowering because it makes us complacent. Like in the end, that is kind of what it's designed to do. Because of that, like, I mean, if you think about it, like you come home after a long day and you're knocking back a drink, like what are you trying to achieve? You're trying to tolerate your life.
Right.
And then you don't have the impetus to really change. And so especially for women, that's a disempowering substance. And I think it's marketed to us on purpose.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
So something that I read while putting together our show notes and things is that there was a great article, and we'll link it in our show notes, but basically back in the 60s when women were staying at home with children and dealing with just issues and anxiety or difficulties of being a mother at that time, doctors were reportedly said to prescribe Valium as a way for women to manage those anxieties rather than teaching them actual coping tools and self-regulation tools. And Valium was often referred to as mommy's little helper. And so I feel like then as, you know, Valium became obviously more of a drug and its more addictive properties were known, wine was kind of reintroduced in that model. And I'm definitely seeing that more and more. I feel like it's sort of reached peak mommy's little helper status in the last couple of years. My oldest is 9, and I remember when he was born, there was definitely a little bit of mommy culture now, but I feel like, just like you said, it's on everything. I've seen it on onesies for babies that say, I'm the reason mommy drinks.
Yes,
and I'm like,
I was going to say that one because that one is so fucked up.
It is. I was just going to say that,
Like...
I get it. Motherhood is hard. I know. We know. We're all moms, but I would never. I don't think I'd ever.
All I was thinking about when you were talking about that was there's also some like gender bullshit there of like we just need to shut up women. So let's give them drugs so they can't
very
talk.
Much so that's the
or vote or
that's the patriarchy. Let's numb them up enough to not give a fuck, and we can do what we want. Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
that's terrifying. Because we were still living it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not just in this kind of like this theoretical patriarchal thing. It's like, it's also like very literal. Like, I mean, alcohol's like the #1 date rape drug, right? So it's like, it shows up in these very concrete ways and then these kind of like more figurative kind of ways, right? Like, it's scary.
That's super scary. I just got chills just thinking about that.
Yeah. I mean, we don't really think about that, right? Like, we don't, we culturally do not think of alcohol as a drug.
No.
Which is really weird.
There's people that are addicted to it, and that's why there's, you know, Al-Anon and all the other groups.
You know, but interestingly, like, I'm not going to get these statistics exactly right or be able to speak about it like really eloquently because I just read it. But it was some study that was done in the UK where their drinking culture, by the way, is insane, right? But they did some kind of study on the effects of like alcohol, cocaine, heroin, like a bunch of drugs, right? Alcohol being included, and like did they had some kind of system where they were measuring like their personal effects and their effects on other people, impacts on other people, and they had like a rating system on like how harmful is this drug, and alcohol was number one.
Whoa.
They had more impacts on other people, and as far as its addictive qualities than heroin, than cocaine. It was more than crack. I mean, it's a serious drug, but we don't treat it like that.
And I think part of the reason we don't treat it like that is because it is so accessible. It's everywhere. It's at the gas station. It's at Target. It's at a restaurant. It's everywhere.
It's a legal drug.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I was just going to say. I think because of its accessibility, because in our minds, they wouldn't put something that's a drug that easy for us to get, right? Whoever they are, Big Brother, the government, whatever, they wouldn't do that to us. But in reality, obviously, that's not the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a moneymaker.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our new end segment is what we call the Squad Wants to Know.
Mm-hmm.
So we have gathered questions from our listeners and social media followers. So maybe we can spend a little bit of time sharing those.
I scribbled one down because I forgot to add it to our notes. It was the one I texted you about today.
Go for it.
Okay, because otherwise I would forget it. So this is from one of our followers who is a sober mom, and she wants to know where or how can sober moms find each other in the Austin area?
I do not know.
Okay. Sorry.
I do not know how to answer that question.
Okay.
I'm sure there's
meetups,
right?
There's actually a bar that opened on the east side.
Oh, Sands Bar?
Yes.
Yeah, I have not actually been there because I can't go out. I've got
I know.
I'm in bed at 8 p.m. So I don't really so I don't know.
That is a movement too, the sober bars.
Yeah, which is awesome because like I love a mocktail.
Yeah.
Love it.
And so I wanted to just follow up on it and just tell people who are not in the Austin area that don't know what it is. And so this is from their website, and it's the Sans, S-A-N-S, bar.com. And it says, we are a growing group of average people who recognize that life can be fun without alcohol. We are sober, we are on the move, and we believe that real connection happens when people are sober. We want to create a space that is free of alcohol and welcoming to all. We believe that the best version of anyone's life includes healthy socialization, helping others, and taking care of both mind and body. And Sans Bar is composed of people who want to change themselves and the world around them. They believe that positive change can happen in the smallest of ways and still yield a tremendous impact. So I think that's pretty cool. And I've seen pictures of the bar. It looks just like any other bar that you would go.
Gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I think it's actually there's like more than one like around the country,
I
right?
think you're right.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I bet you there's a hashtag.
I bet there is. Well,
we can find stuff that way.
When I was looking this up, I did put down sober moms, and I think the website is sobermoms.com, but it's just a website for people for moms who are interested in, who are sober curious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just more information on how to do it, why you would do it, health benefits of giving up alcohol, and things like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to search for those hashtags myself.
Yeah. I guess we kind of already talked about this, but I did like the way this question was phrased. It made me giggle a little. But I'm a firm believer of everything in moderation, except maybe like meth. So why sober? But I mean, that was pretty much everything we talked about.
Yeah.
Let's see. I did like this. I think it's important to question why alcohol is so ingrained into our social structure. Why do you think that may be? I guess we spoke to that a little bit. Mm-hmm. Anything else that comes to mind? Why are we here?
Yeah, I mean, we've been drinking alcohol for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's just something that is kind of human.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it is human to want to alter your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a human thing.
Mm-hmm.
But just because we've been doing it for thousands of years doesn't mean we should continue to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are in this quote unquote like woke culture right now where we're all trying to become more conscious.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first step to doing that is probably to not be inebriated.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, stop numbing yourself. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
let's see. So one of the questions, another one that we talked about just kind of naturally is how and when did mommy juice culture start? Has it always been around but in secret? I think it's always been around, but it hasn't always been mommy juice. It's always been something else.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we identified that it's because of the patriarchy, right?
Yes.
I did find this interesting too. Not so much a question, but I was shocked to learn the definition of light, moderate, heavy, and binge drinking. So I guess it's literally just like 1, 2, 3, 4. So like 1 drink is considered light, 2 is moderate, 3 is heavy, and 4 or more is binge drinking.
And I think that's in a night. That's not in like a week or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I know binge drinking is something like for a woman, it's like 4 drinks within like a 2-hour span. But as far as like if you're a light or moderate drinker, the numbers are a lot lower than you would think, which means that we, are all drinking a lot more than we think we are. And honestly, we're probably all drinking a lot more than we admit to. Yeah.
Totally. And wine glasses that fit whole bottles of wine don't help you keep track.
Yeah, right? Yeah, our idea of what constitutes a serving of alcohol is also skewed.
Yeah.
Big time.
A lot of times when I'll be talking to moms about breastfeeding and alcohol and all of that, I have to be very specific. Like it means an ounce of a spirit or whatever. And
right.
likely not what you're going to get at a restaurant if you go out with friends. Yeah.
Right, true.
Well, even if I get like a flight or have been wine tasting, I'm like very affected by it. And in my head going into it, it's like, we're just tasting. But that adds up really quickly. And depending on who's pouring your taste, you could be getting a full serving.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
That is all of our questions.
Yeah. Do you have anything else that you want to add about this?
I think just for people who are like questioning their drinking, just think about the example that you want to set for your kids as far as like what kind of adults do you want your children to grow into? And like, this sounds a little shamey and I don't mean it to at all. Like I really do not. But just like what coping skills do you want them to have? And you have to like start setting that example for them now. And I know that I don't want my girls to be the kind of adults who believe that the best way to like deal with their hard feelings is through alcohol. Like I do not want to set that example. And so I think that's what really got me questioning my drinking. And I think it's worth like everyone should like question that. And it doesn't even really matter if you're drinking in front of your kids or not, because like they know. They just do. And they'll find out.
Yeah.
At some point, even if they don't know now.
I mean, mine are already asking.
Yeah.
So
they know the word alcohol.
They know beer. Yeah. My kids know beer and wine. And, I think I said initially when we were talking about how much we drink, I was like, after the kids go to bed, then I'm like, what the fuck am I thinking? No, I don't wait for them to go to bed some nights. It's just, and then again, just seeing you saying what you said made me imagine what they're seeing through their eyes.
Right?
And,
I had a real strong moment like shortly after I got sober, and my girls, like, they picked up some random glass like on the table that was filled with, some clear liquid. And they're like, hey, can I drink this? And I was like, of course. And it occurred to me that when I was living with my husband, they had to ask before they picked up any random glass and had a sip, because it very likely had like melted ice with gin in it from the night before.
Right.
And so it wasn't safe for them. And that it really honestly made me feel really shitty. Like I was leaving like literal glasses of what is honestly a poison around my house, and that my children had to like question that. So yeah, it was like a really big moment for me to be able to say, like you can drink anything in this house is safe for you. Like anything that you find in a glass that I've been drinking, you're allowed to drink. Yeah. So that was a little bit eye-opening for me.
Man.
I know.
I feel like, I guess I'm feeling like I need to like hold our listeners who drink, which I guess is information if that's what my urge is. But I don't know. We both drink and we're wanting to have this conversation, right? So
yeah,
it just be curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's confrontational and like that's okay. Like, you know, but it's not personal either. You know, it's cultural.
Yeah.
So it's okay. Like no one's calling you out. It's part of our culture and it's something that we have to collectively start to question, like if we want things to shift culturally. It has to start with us and that's difficult. But it also doesn't make us like wrong or bad. I mean, it's honestly, we're victims of the culture in a variety of ways. And this is just a big one.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And
I like that.
If you're
not personal, it's cultural.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so if you're listening to this and you're feeling a little crappy or shitty or feel like we were talking at you instead of with you, please know that we were not. The whole point of this this episode and really our whole podcast is to talk about this stuff. And a lot of it.
We want to talk about the hard stuff.
We want to talk about the hard stuff. And sometimes that includes thinking about why you're reaching for a glass of wine at the end of the night, or should you have another drink when you go out with your girlfriends and all of that. And I know it's getting the gears turning in my head. And I'll be honest, I'm sure I have at some point reached for a glass of wine instead of dealing with my feelings because feelings are hard and sometimes you just want to be numb. And again, like what we were saying in the last episode and what we've said before, Alexis, we want to tune out rather than tuning in.
Like I get it. And I mean, I numb my feelings.
No, I said we want to tune out rather than tuning in with the glass of wine.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And I mean, the impulse to numb is like,
it's human.
that's natural.
Yeah.
I numb with chocolate chips, you know, and like that's okay. But fortunately, like chocolate chips are not going to give me a hangover. And like, you know, you can debate the evils of sugar all you want, but that's, you know, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. Another episode.
Yeah. But yeah, so there are still other ways to cope that are like a lot more healthful. Like no one's like just saying that you have to like expose your raw heart at every minute and make every moment like therapy. Like that's not what sobriety is. There's still coping available.
And also nobody's saying that you can't drink. Just like you said, you absolutely can. That's your right. But think about why.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely question your motivations for drinking for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's Netflix.
Yeah. There's Netflix and chocolate simultaneously.
Right.
Which is very good.
So last but not least, can you tell our listeners where they can find you or share anything that you have coming up that you're going to be doing?
I don't have anything coming up, unfortunately. I'm going to get some workshops on the books for tarot stuff because that's kind of like my main like interest and gig as far as, you know, personal growth stuff goes. So really like finding me on Instagram is the best place. And that's Oak Moon Tarot on Instagram. And I've got all my stuff there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and having this discussion with us.
Thanks. Yeah, it was really fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
If the Top Knot Squad's content makes you laugh, nod in agreement, or makes you feel less alone, we'd love your support in the cost of producing this podcast. Visit patreon.com/TopKnotSquad to learn more about our budget-friendly sponsorship tiers and how you can help ensure that TKS has a future. Every little bit helps.
If you like what you hear, then be sure to click the subscribe button in your podcast app. While you're there, leave us a review. You can find us on social media. Just search for Top Knot Squad. We welcome your feedback and love making new friends.